Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for this very important announcement as we continue to deal with the City of Jackson's response to this global pandemic of COVID-19. I will inform you before I speak to this order that is going into effect, which will go into effect at 12 a.m. on Friday morning. 12 midnight Friday morning is when this order will go into effect, and it is intended to give people an opportunity to make necessary adjustments in order to abide by this order. I will say before we begin that this is a very thorough order. Anytime we have to implement a measure of this magnitude, it requires that we be as specific as we can be. And so this is an 11-page document, and we will not be able to address every possible scenario that can be thought of and how it applies to this order. But you can expect that we will be doing a What You Need to Know video that will be released so that citizens, businesses, and affected individuals can appropriately respond and abide by this order. Today, we are announcing that I have signed a proclamation of executive order requiring individuals to stay at home and practice social distancing requirements, barring non-essential businesses and limiting certain other activities in the city of Jackson. What you need to know. This order was contemplated in order to combat the spread of COVID-19 in the city of Jackson, and it is effective April 3rd, 2020, directing all residents to stay at home and limit movements outside of their homes beyond essential needs. You can go to the grocery store or convenience store. You can go to the pharmacy and pick up medication and other health care necessities. You can go to a restaurant for takeout, delivery, or drive-through only. No in-house dining. You can care for or support a friend or family member only as provided in this order. You can take a walk, you can ride your bike, and be in nature for exercise. This is to provide both emotional and physical well-being. You must keep at least 6 feet distance between you and others and observe all specific social distancing requirements as set forth in this order. You can help someone to get to necessary supplies. You can leave your home only for essential activities, essential government function, or to participate in essential business and operations, provided that the social distancing requirements as set forth in this order are observed. You shall not go to work unless you are providing essential service as defined by this order. Visit friends and family if there is no urgent need. Maintain at least 6 feet of distance from others when you go out. Non-essential businesses and operations must cease. All businesses and operations in the city except essential businesses and operations as defined in this order are required to cease all activities except for minimal basic operations as defined by this order, such as handling payroll and security checks. All essential businesses and operations may remain open. Essential businesses and operations must comply with the specific social distancing requirements provided in this order. The Jackson Police Department and other local agencies will monitor the activity of essential businesses and operations, including religious and spiritual gatherings. If large gatherings are observed and reported, tighter restrictions will be issued. All places of public amusement, whether indoors or outdoors, including but not limited to locations where amusement rides, pool halls, adult entertainment venues, zoos, children play centers, theaters, concerts, and music halls, and other similar businesses shall be closed. All personal care and grooming businesses, including but not limited to barbershops, beauty salons, nail salons, spas, massage parlors, tattoo parlors, and other similar businesses shall be closed. All retail stores, except for those provided in Section 12B of this order, shall be closed. All bars, nightclubs, lounges, taverns, and private clubs shall be closed, except to the extent that such establishment may only provide takeout, pickup, delivery, or dine-through service for food as allowed by law. All malls, except for stores in malls that have a direct outdoor entrance and exit that provide essential service and products as provided by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency guidelines, shall be closed. In-house restaurant dining, once again, is prohibited. Only essential travel and essential activities as defined by this order are permitted. People riding on public transit must comply with social distancing requirements to the greatest extent possible. The order allows travel in and out of the city to maintain essential business and operations. Examples of essential worker functions: healthcare workers and caregivers, workers supporting grocers, electricity and utility industry employees, public safety employees, human service providers. In general, the order follows guidelines from the Federal Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency about what infrastructure and businesses are critical or essential during the COVID-19 outbreak. The city is working through the Jackson Police Department to support the order. Citizens are encouraged to report violations. We are also working in conjunction with the Hinds County Sheriff's Department. Let me be clear, this order is not created in order to create or to invoke martial law. Instead, this order is contemplated in order to assure that we are doing all reasonable measures to ensure the safety of our citizens and those that join or visit our city for health care needs. This is not an order that we intend to execute by trying to incarcerate people. We know that we don't have the ability to be on every corner, every street, and so we are calling on the personal responsibility of citizens to act in their own welfare and in the welfare of others, their neighbors, their friends, their family members, and fulfill these requirements. It is important that we be together while we are apart. My principal objective as mayor at this time is to provide brutal honesty to our citizens and give them the information that they need to know while we deal with this outbreak. At the same time, provide a rational basis for hope. We know that there still are very few people that are infected with the virus, but we know that it is highly contagious. And if we do not execute due diligence and appropriate precautions, then we can see the spread of this virus and others becoming harmed unnecessarily. And so this order was contemplated only under the strictest and the greatest of necessities. And so we know that there have been a small minority who have not abided by the prior orders, and that leaves us all in danger, and that threatens the safety of us all. And so that is why we have executed these orders. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank a few people. I'd like to thank the first responders who, in the midst of this pandemic, have been the ones who are caring for people, who have placed themselves at danger and threat in order to assure that people have the critical health and safety concerns, their health and safety concerns met. I'd like to thank the caregivers, the health care professionals that have been working diligently, have been working around the clock in order to provide the necessary care to individuals affected by this disease and people with other underlying health concerns. I'd like to thank the council for standing with us as we institute this order and ensure that we do all that we can in our power to make certain that we are leaving Jackson residents in the safest condition that we possibly can. And so this has all been contemplated, and we do not rush to do this, but for the necessity of making sure that we assure the public health of our citizens. We will take a few questions, but I will reiterate, as I did at the beginning of my remarks, I know that we will not be able to cover every possibility in every category of work that this order contemplates, or the various things that the questions that we may have. We will try to answer as many questions as we can, but you should expect that we will have a need to know what you need to know video that will be published to the citizens so that people can abide by this order. If you have any questions, I will take them at this time. I saw the question from WAPT in the back first. You got to speak up for me. If it does not bar travel, right? It prescribes what the essential work is in the city of Jackson. If you work in another municipality, then this does not bar essential travel. And so if you have to get to and from work, this does not stop you from being able to do that. This is not intended to be incarceration in your home. This is a safety provision. This is making certain we streamline the process so that people know what is and what is not permitted. And quite obviously, where we see large gatherings that are not prescribed by this order or previous orders, such as that limiting gatherings to less than 10 people, then we know that you are in violation. And this enables law enforcement and those who are tasked with helping us fulfill these requirements to better know who is in violation. One moment. Yeah, I'll speak to that.
Can I ask you another, why are you not shutting down public transportation, J-Train?
For the very reason that it's an essential service. You don't want to shut down the only mode of transportation that people may have to get to the grocery store, to get to their health care needs. And so we have created restrictions on J-Tran. There is no front entry onto the J-Tran bus. You can only enter from the rear. And the bus drivers, there is a barrier between the bus drivers and those riding. They are also under a reduced ridership requirement. So it adheres to the 10-person requirement. But that public transportation is essential because those individuals who are without a vehicle are in need of getting to the same essential things that we all are in need of getting to. I will come to you. I'm going to come here. I saw this hand, and then I'll come there. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, under this order, where does the Jackson Medical Mall fall under? Are they still open, or do they have to be reduced or closed completely? What's the future of the Jackson Medical Mall under these rules?
This order contemplated that as well. It spoke about malls that have an entry point that if they are providing those essential services as prescribed in here, then those businesses within the medical mall can remain open. But those businesses that are not providing an essential service, like everywhere else, they must close so that we limit the size of gatherings and that we are adhering to the advice provided by the CDC, by Homeland Security in the execution of those things that we enumerated as being essential and non-essential. I want it to be known that all of the things that we have spoken to as being either essential or non-essential wasn't by our own choosing. It wasn't by us deciding that we value this more so than another operation. We know that there is financial strain on our citizens and on our businesses at this time. And so we're doing all that we can in order to flatten the curve so that we can restore safety to everyone and that we can restore it back to normal operations. Yes?
Mr. Mayor, can you speak to the reasons behind no curfew, citywide curfew including this order, and whether or not that might actually be something that can be added?
Yeah.
Depending on circumstance, I still reserve the right to implement a curfew if we see fit. One of the reasons that we opted not to provide a curfew is because the curfew provides the same type of restrictive measures that are enumerated in this order. But one of the challenges that have been witnessed in places where the curfew has been implemented is that once people are given a specific time by which they have to be in the house, then people rush to those essential services that they need. They crowd the grocery stores even more, leaving people at increased threat. And so by giving the opportunity for people to go to get groceries at any hour that they need to, so long as it is an essential service, then it creates a wider area of time, span of time that they can get to those services and not endanger each other in the way that we've contemplated. I'm going to come over here, then I'll come back to a follow-up question. Yes?
Yeah, two questions. Are gun shops considered essential businesses, number one? And number two, churches, by allowing churches to be open, are you worried that that could possibly spread the virus as it has in other cases in churches?
Yeah. So gun shops are not considered essential services. And churches are only able to stay open if they can abide by the social distancing requirements. If you have 100 members in your church, the likelihood is that you cannot abide by that order. And the reality is that most of our churches have been carrying forth service virtually, and we encourage them to still do that. And so if there's a church that you only have, like my church when it first started, where we were meeting in a conference room, and we only had about less than 10 members at that time, right? Then maybe it can be executed in that way. But like the other things that we have mentioned, one, there is some concern to make certain that we are abiding by questions over separation of church and state, right? And that we are doing all that we can to be in accord with the law. But like other things that we have mentioned, if more restrictive measures have to be employed, we won't hesitate to do so.
Mr. Mayor, where does the airport fall in this?
The airport is in the city limits, and so it's essential. It is essential. But also, my ability or our ability to limit aviation or travel is not prescribed by the city of Jackson. That would have to come from the federal government. I'll come here and then back here. Yes.
Mayor, you said recently on MSNBC, you kind of addressed this, and I wanted to touch on this today. Without a concerted effort from the entire metro area, to establish similar rules, will this truly make a difference in Jackson? Will we have people coming back and forth from Brandon to Jackson and vice versa? Are there other restrictions?
Absolutely. And just to repeat the question, in the event it was not heard, what is our concern about the policies or the restrictions that are being implemented statewide or in the Metro Jackson area? And if there's a failure to do so, how does that affect us here in Jackson? I have been pleading that we have a uniform policy because our communities are too interconnected. Jacksonians travel to and from our neighboring and bedroom communities, just as people in those communities travel to Jackson. And so we want to assure their safety and our own. Not only are we concerned because Jackson is the most dense population in the state of Mississippi. We are the capital city, or the capital city of the state of Mississippi. More importantly, we are the capital of healthcare. And so if those people are endangered in those cities, they are likely to come to Jackson, to our health facilities, creating further strain on those healthcare officials and professionals. And so we want everyone to exercise the greatest level of due diligence and preparation in the midst of this global pandemic. It is not my measure or my effort to get into a political battle at this time. That is not what I am trying to get into. This is a much more serious thing that we're dealing with. And so I'm just calling on us to care about our mothers and fathers, our grandmothers and grandfathers, our sisters and brothers, collectively, wherever you are, and put in the most restrictive and the most most thought out plan that we possibly can. And I think that requires that we work in tandem with one another, as opposed to a fragmented stance on how we deal with this virus. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, in Vicksburg and Meridian, they have decided to close down daycares within the city. And if I missed this, I apologize. But can you explain why you
Yes.
chose not to decide to close daycares? Why they're considered
Yes.
essential?
Daycares are essential because we have so many people that are a part of that essential category of work that need some place to take their children. Now, by saying that it is essential, I am merely providing the vehicle by which a daycare can stay open. If a daycare owner or facility feels that it is not in their best interest to remain open, then that is up to their personal discretion to close those facilities. And I thank you for bringing up that question, because we've gotten a lot of inquiry about that. And some have even suggested that if we close it as being non-essential, then maybe they can tap into some of their insurance provisions. What we have witnessed thus far, particularly as it pertains to the restaurant industry, insurance companies have been very hesitant to honor that provision under this circumstance. And so there is very limited information, or less than optimistic representation at this point that provision will be honored in their individual insurance policies. And so I am providing the vehicle because we know that we have so many essential workers that need someone to care for their children. But it is up to the personal discretion of those facilities as to whether they want to be open or not.
I don't mean to be hypothetical, but what if a daycare center has more than 10 kids inside it at once? Is there a violation then, or does that not matter? They
are required to separate, to socially distance as well. So that would be no more than 10 children to a room. They need to separate in that way. And I'm certain that requirement makes it difficult. And so there will be circumstances where some children may have to be turned away. And so maybe their policy is to only allow that service for essential work only.
Mayor, have you heard from neighboring communities that they're going to consider a stay-at-home order? And have you heard that the governor is considering a statewide lockdown?
I just maybe an hour ago learned that it was reported that the governor is considering a stay-at-home statewide order. And I have yet to see what that entails and what is essential or non-essential. And I have spoken to several other mayors from across the state about what they are implementing, questions that they have about our order or the governor's order. And so I will continue to do that. And I may even author a public response or public inquiry that we all work together to ensure that we are having a uniform policy that ensures the safety of us all.
Do you think there needs to be a statewide order?
Homeless people in place. What are we doing about the homeless? Does the city have a plan intact for the homeless? We have the Opportunity Center as well as the homeless shelter. So many homeless people coming in and out of these shelters, going back and forth. What has the city done to address the homeless situation?
Yeah. So the city is encouraging our homeless population to seek shelter, but they will not be penalized if they are not in shelter because they have no home. Whether it pertains to the homeless population or other individuals who are in need of shelter at this time, we are entertaining some options of how we may be able to work with our hospitality industry to provide reasonable accommodations for those that are in need, whether it be the homeless population you mentioned, or whether it be those that are in need of social or isolating themselves, self-isolation, because they have come into contact with somebody who has the virus, or they have, in fact, become a confirmed case. And so we are trying to execute a contract on that. And as we do in any other emergency, whether if we have a citywide bad weather emergency, we always work with our shelters to try to stand up operations in the best way we possibly can for our homeless community.
Mayor, I just got a question from a funeral home owner, and I would imagine when it comes to funeral visitation, the 10-person rule still applies, right?
Yes, 10-person rule still applies. That doesn't mean that they can't coordinate it in a way that they don't have more people in there that than would be beyond that requirement. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, can you just go back real quick to explain what the penalties would be if you caught people violating, and would you still consider, or Chief James could also emphasize on that, but would you also still consider shutting off the power for nightclubs and other places?
Yeah. So the statute provides that you can be fined up to $300. And there are some other misdemeanor provisions that it allows us to implement. But I do want to emphasize that our goal here is not to incarcerate. Our goal is not to criminalize. Our goal is for the health and safety of individuals, right? As other things that are taking place, we are concerned not only with the health and safety of all citizens around the city, we're even concerned with how we are helping our county as they execute safety for the jail. And so that is important to us. And so our goal is not to arrest people, right? It is my hope, and I know that the overwhelming majority of our residents will abide by this order because they're concerned for themselves and concerned for others. And so we ask that people don't do things like what we saw where there were some block parties taking place recently, where we've seen people cruising. I understand how young people want to enjoy themselves. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi. I've hung out in areas that they are hanging out in, but this is not the time. And we don't want young people to believe that they are invincible. Even if they are they have a less significant risk of loss of life based on their age, they can be carriers to their loved ones. They don't want to hurt mom. They don't want to hurt dad. They don't want to hurt grandma or grandpa, right? And so we're asking that they abide by this because this is a highly contagious virus. Yes, a small minority of individuals actually, it's only fatal in a small minority of the population. However, one life lost unnecessarily is tragic and it makes no sense. And so we're asking that people abide by these measures. Yes?
Yeah, I'm curious. Hinds County has the most number of cases of COVID-19 out of every county in the state. The other day, the governor and the health department declared Lauderdale County a hotspot. Just wondering if they've reached out to you at all, or you talked to health department officials about what Hinds County status is?
I have talked to health officials not in the regard in which you're speaking. I confer with the City of Jackson's COVID-19 task force, which is populated by a number of healthcare officials. And so we talk about those numbers being released. We speak about CDC requirements and guidelines, and we strategize over what type of response we want to implement based on that, right? But in terms of if you're asking if the governor has called me about Jackson being a hotspot, no, he has not.
Are you doing anything different as far as nursing homes go?
Nursing homes are open. They are essential. Yeah, and we're asking for social distancing with nursing homes as well. We know that is a vulnerable population. And so we're asking that they obviously take advantage of, I'm coming to you, they obviously take advantage of those recommendations that the CDC is implementing and our requirements as a city. But we know we still need caregivers at nursing homes in order to aid them. Yes, sir.
Yes, so what about homeless people? Y'all consider that?
Yeah, that's what I was speaking about just a moment ago, that we're encouraging them to shelter, to seek shelter. The city will have its normal operation through our constituent services division that helps find them shelter. But also we won't penalize them or arrest them or fine them for being homeless, right? So this is not intended, once again, this measure, the overarching effort and effect of this measure is not to criminalize, but to ensure that we're doing all that we can to ensure public safety. And so we will obviously speak to and confront violators, known violators, so that we can disperse those gatherings that are taking place and should not and are not authorized. But at the same time, it is not our effort in order to criminalize our population. That is not what we're aiming to do. Yes.